There, there is a difference between modern Druids and ancient Druids. Now, ancient Druids, there were some really famous ones. So I'll have to look that up. Okay, um, some of them were advisors to people, such as the Roman Emperor. Um, they had one goal. That goal was to protect nature at all costs, including the cost of humanity. So a lot of wars were fought over saving a forest. Now, today's Druids are not like the Druids of old. Now, the Druids of old actually became something, many of them, they themselves, would not have recognized from what they originally were. This happens to a lot of the religions throughout history, such as the main sects of Christianity. Oh, there's a trick if you put frosting on a cake while it's still warm. Sorry. Um, that is good. Um, there's a trick where you can kind of make it almost like lava. It's actually thinner, but because it kind of goes down, you have to put a little bit more frosting by the corners because it's going to melt off of those unless you do. And if you put it right before the corners, what ends up happening is as it melts, a little bit goes there. Now this is a chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. Okay, quite a bit in the middle because this is where I'm going to do some formations and decorations, and I need that as a base. Jane's birthday cake. Um, anyway, because I do have limited time, DNA is still up soaking as fast. Okay. Add the trick because it's still hot. It's still melting down. Should be flattered by the time, you know, because it's fresh. Like, the thing is still hot whenever I turn it over. So yeah. Afterwards, I've got a little bit left that I'm going to touch up the sides with, because that's another area that you get that issue with. Anyway, back to the point. The difference between modern Druids and ancient Druids. Now, ancient Druids, at some point, fell out of history, kind of, like, almost like they dropped off the planet. Now, what the story is that, there are a lot of different stories, I guess you could say. Theories. There's even a story about story keepers, people who pass on the story to each other. Who generally don't advertise those things. Anyway, the story that I'm going to tell you, I guess, during, okay, up until the burning time, or close to them, I should say, Druids had been the driving force behind many wars, squabbles between, I mean, they'd been chieftains, advisors to chieftains, and their only soft spot was the children. Um, in a sense, that was the rule. But other than that, they would lead an entire city if it meant saving forests. They may not do it with their own hands, but they were the ones advising so that they could get the results that they wanted, no matter what it took. Modern druids are very different. Hardly even recognizable, to be honest. Most of the people I know who are of a pagan religion and do any type of activist activity are not druids. Whenever it's about the environment, and most environmentalists I know aren't violent whatsoever, and they won't justify it by killing somebody. But druids were rather extreme. Around the end of that was actually why there were limits set in other paths. Like, for instance, in Wicca, and ye harm none, do what you will is the thing. But then with Wicca, there's a limit on how many people you can have in a coven. The limit is 13. At 13, and whenever you pass 13, you need to split up into two different covens. Some of them take it further by high priest and high priestess just being two people that have more training. They're not above anyone else in the coven. They're generally respected for the fact that they've taken that much training, but everything is questioned. Nobody's allowed to lead anybody to do anything without everybody in there saying, okay, you can lead. I mean, it's even possible for a junior member to lead a ritual as long as they know how. That's some topic. Now, whenever you go into the history of it, though, it's quite a disturbing history, but at the end, a lot of druids did actually see the error of their ways. There's I guess you could call it a legend if you want. There were many druids that, at the end, so this is easier for me to write than say. There were many druids at the end who saw the error of their ways and had been manipulating people so long. Some of the Christians in the Crusades defaulted to a verse in the Old Testament: thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. For a while there had been tolerance over some of the pagans, but anytime one of us screws up, they all pay the price. There were a lot of very innocent people, men, women, children. A lot of things that didn't go down in the paperwork. I mean, come on. I think most of those people got trials. I mean, it's ridiculous because now there's a new history of that, and I'm telling you, there were entire villages that were slaughtered and then swept under the rug. These were nothing short of war crimes. This was a war that was started by the Druids to begin with. They broke their edicts, became too large and too corrupt. This wasn't a war to save the forest. Not everything was done that could have been done. This wasn't to save the earth. This wasn't to save Mother Nature. Druids used to be Mother Nature's defenders. This was a war where a grove got very, very full of itself. then I don't know all the details. How can we? No matter. Stories get passed down. But, even sometimes our ancestors have limited knowledge. Depends on how important in the grove you are. Some of them ran off and helped some of the more harmless people who had never done anything except do things like looking for babies. Because it wasn't all Druids. There were many different paths. Each and every one of them ended up paying the price. Because the Druids broke their vows. They were some of the most powerful people in the known world. They were advisors to kings and queens. I mean, so there's this one person who's trying to say they were never into politics. Well, let me tell you something. Some of the most famous people in history, guess what? They were Druids. Some of them down in the history books as Druids, and some of them not. It can be elusive as, what's that one thing called? The Mason. Can be as elusive as the Freemasons. Or it can be as open as this grove I know from that meets in Phoenix. I won't meet with them. I met with them once. They keep on deferring to people who don't know the history and doing things that are against protecting nature. But then they say, because I stopped someone from doing this. No, you don't understand. Unless you're going to call yourself something different. Druid still means that you're a protector of nature. Still means that that is your religious path. You essentially bow down to the ground that people walk on, and you will do whatever it takes to protect it. That's what it means. But as a lot of people that will toss curses out at people and hurt them call themselves wiccans, there are some people that call themselves Druids. A Druid can essentially be any religion. Druids weren't necessarily like a religion. They were just an order of people who believed like 100 different things, except they were united under protecting nature. So, some of them were politicians. Some of them were midwives, everything. There were some who doubled in other paths, but there were some who left because of how corrupt it had become. I mean, they had too much power. They ruled a lot of things from the shadows. And right before everything blew up, a lot of groves disintegrated. I don't mean like they burned to the ground, I mean they dissolved. Went their separate ways, said, fuck this shit. And those people ended up helping a lot of people escape. Because for whatever reason, whenever the Crusades happened, they were not originally about killing witches or anything. It was completely different. It had nothing to do with any of that. It was just, but on the way it became that. A lot of men, women, and children died. A lot of them whose stories will never be told. And the ones who dissolved helped a lot of us escape. I say us because if I had been back then, I would have been burned.